All right, guys, good evening. Today's April 3rd, 2020. Right now, we will call this the Daily Flocks. I'm Anthony Perlas, your host, and we're going to go over a few articles, maybe one article, depending on how bored I get. But the first one we're going to go is written by Will Oramus. What everyone's getting wrong about the toilet paper shortage. It really isn't about hoarding, and there isn't an easy fix. Around the world, in countries afflicted with the coronavirus, stores are sold out of toilet papers. There have been shortages in Hong Kong, Australia, the United Kingdom, the United States, and we all know who to blame: hoarders and panic buyers. Well, not so fast. Story after story explains the toilet paper outages as a sort of fluke of consumer irrationality. Unlike hand sanitizers, N95 masks, or hospital ventilators, they note toilet paper serves no special function in a pandemic. Toilet paper manufacturers are cranking out the same supply as always. And it's not like people are using the bathroom more often, right? U.S. Health Secretary Alex Azar summed up the paradox in a March 13th New York Times story. Toilet paper is not an effective way to prevent getting the coronavirus, but they're selling out. The president of a paper manufacturer offered a consensus explanation. You are not using more of it, you are just filling up your closet with it. Faced with this mystifying phenomenon, media outlets have turned to psychologists to explain why people are cramming up their shelves with a household good that has nothing to do with the pandemic. Read the coverage and you'll encounter all sort of fascinating concepts, from the zero risk bias to anticipatory anxiety. It's a driven by fear and herd mentality, the BBC scolded. Libertarian Mises Institute took the opportunity to blame the anti-gouging laws, which I think is kind of bullshit. Now, I don't think the government. No one should be arrested. If someone's smart enough to stock up on toilet paper and there's a demand for it, you want your toilet paper now, you can buy it for $50 if you have to. Now, the left will prevent you from setting your price and stuff. You just gotta, it's, risk and reward. Not everyone is equal. People are smart. If they stocked up on toilet paper, they should have the right to sell it for $50 a roll. Now you're gonna be like, "Yo, what if you run out?" I mean, yeah, that's my fault. I ran out of toilet paper. It's my fucking bad. It's my bad decision. I made a bad investment. We are so worried about the rules that all these creative ideas, if someone puts like a trademark or whatever, even trademarks and copyrights are done by the left. But we're so kind of worried that we don't even get creative. We're kind of the being smart is punished almost nowadays. There's always a rules against smart people. So, you know, yeah. If I had an extra toilet paper, I should be able to sell it for $50 and do what I need to do. But nope. Anti-gouging laws, this is bullshit, guys. Come on. I mean, yeah, it doesn't sound fair. I know, yeah. But what is fair? Who are you to decide? Why do you have authority on what someone can do? It doesn't hurt anyone, you know. The Atlantic published a short documentary harking back to the Great Toilet Paper Scare of 1973, which was driven by misinformation. I'm going back to the article now, but I'm going to be throwing out opinions on your mindset that you should kind of absorb and implement in your life. As you listen to my voice, you will implement these traits. Go out there, change the world. Most outlets agree that the spike in demand would be short lived, subsiding as soon as the hoarders were satiated. For those who don't know, satiated means basically hunger. No doubt that there's been some panic buying, particularly once photos of the empty store shelves began circulating on social media. There have also been a handful of documented cases of true hoarding, but you don't need to assume that the most consumers are greedy or irrational to understand how coronavirus would spur a surge in demand, and you can stop wondering where in the world people are storing all that quilted northern. And for those international people out there, I know there's a lot of you listening. Quilted Northern is an American toilet paper brand. Or, I mean, we buy it here. Could be made in China. I don't really know. I didn't really research that. I'm just here to read the motherfucking article. There's another. Now we're going back to the article. There's another logical explanation of why stores have run out of toilet paper, one that has gone oddly overlooked in the vast majority of media coverage. It has nothing to do with psychology and everything to do with supply chains. It helps to explain why stores are still having trouble to keep it in stock, weeks after they started limiting how many a customer could purchase. In short, the toilet paper industry is split into two largely separate markets, commercial and consumer. The pandemic has shifted the lion's share of demand to the latter. People actually do need to buy significantly more toilet paper during the pandemic, not because they're making more trips to the bathroom, but because they are making more of them at home. With some 75% of the US population under stay-at-home orders, Americans are no longer using restrooms at their workplace, in schools, at restaurants, at hotels, or in airports. Georgia Pacific, a leading toilet paper manufacturer based in Atlanta, Georgia, guys, estimates that the average household will use 40% more toilet paper than usual if all of its members are staying home around the clock. That's a huge leap in demand for a product whose supply chain is predicted on the assumption that the demand is essentially constant. It's one thing that won't fully subside even when people stop hoarding or panic buying. If you're looking for where all the toilet paper went, forget about the people's attics or hall closets. Think instead of all the toilet paper that normally goes to that commercial market. Those office buildings, college campuses, Starbucks, and airports that are now either mostly empty or closed. That the toilet paper that's suddenly gone unused. So, why can't we just send the toilet paper to Safeway or CVS? That's where the supply chains and distributions come in. Talk to anyone in the industry and they'll tell you that the toilet paper made for the commercial market is a fundamentally different product from the toilet paper you buy in the store. It comes in huge rolls, too big to fit on most home dispensers. The paper itself is thinner and more utilitarian. It comes individually wrapped and is shipped on huge pallets, rather than the brightly branded packs of 6 or 12. Not only is it not the same product, but it is doesn't come from the same mills, added Jim Luke, a professor of economics at Lansing Community College, who once worked as the head of the planning for a wholesale paper distributor. So for instance, Procter & Gamble, which owns Charmin, is huge in the retail consumer market, but it doesn't play in the institutional market at all. Georgia Pacific, which sells both to markets, told me its commercial products also use recycled fiber, while the retail sheets for its consumer brands, Angel Soft and Quilted Northern, are typically 100% virgin fiber. Eric Abercrombie, a spokesman for the company, said it had seen demand rise on the retail side, while it expects a decline in the away-from-home activity that drives its business-to-business sales. In theory, some of the mills that make commercial toilet paper could try to redirect some of that supply to the consumer market. People desperate for the toilet paper probably wouldn't even turn up their noses at it. But the industry can't just flip a switch. Switching to a retail channel would require new relationships and contracts between suppliers, distributors, stores, different formats for packaging and shipping, new trucking routes, all for a bulky product with lean profit margins. Because toilet paper is high volume but low value, the industry runs on extremely efficiency, with mills built to work at full capacity around the clock even in normal times. That works only because demand is typically so steady. If toilet paper manufacturers spend a bunch of money now to refocus on the retail channel, they'll face the same problems in reverse once people head back to work again. The normal distribution system is like a well-orchestrated ballet, said Willie Shih, SHIH, a professor at Harvard Business School. If you make a delivery to a Walmart distribution center, they give you a half-hour window, and your truck has to show up then. The changes wrought by the coronavirus, he said, have thrown the whole thing out of balance, and everything has to readjust. While toilet paper is an extreme case, similar dynamics are likely to temporarily disrupt supplies of other goods too, even if no one is hoarding or panic buying. The CEO of a fruit and vegetable supplier told NPR Weekends Edition that schools and restaurants are canceling their banana orders while grocery stores are selling out and want more. The problem is that the bananas he sells to schools and restaurants are petite and sold loose in the boxes of 150, whereas grocery store bananas are larger and sold in bunches. Beer companies face a similar challenge converting commercial keg sales to retail cans and bottles. It's all happening, of course, against the backdrop of a pandemic that makes it hard enough for these producers to keep up the business as usual, let alone remold their operations to keep up with radical shifts in demand. If there's any good news, it's that we can stop blaming these shortages on the alleged idiocracy of our fellow consumers. I'm absolutely convinced that very little was triggered by hoarding, Luke said. Even a modest, reasonable amount of stocking up by millions of people in the preparation for stay at home orders would have been enough to deplete many store shelves. From there, the ripple effects of availability concerns, coupled with a genuine increase in demand due to people staying in, are sufficient to explain ongoing supply problems. In the long run, the industry is still optimistic that it can adapt. We've got fiber supply, we've got trees, said George Specific Abercrombie. It's just a matter of making the product and getting out. In the meantime, some enterprising restorers have begun selling their excess supplies of toilet paper, alcohol, and other basics. Last week, I picked up a takeover at a local restaurant with a side of toilet papers and bananas. The toilet paper was thin and individually wrapped. The bananas were puny. They'll do just fine. And that's it, guys. So, yeah, a lot's going to come up. We have a lot of surprises coming up. So right now, this is a Daily Flux. We might actually change this to a different brand. I'm still working out. Still waiting on a sign where I can kind of blast up and kind of lift weights, but it's really hard to lift weights right now. But still maintaining. I still got my guns. Still getting in shape. Still got to do more cardio still. But stay tuned, guys. I promise we have a lot of surprises.